My name is Martin Schubert, and I'm the manager here at the University of Tennessee's Institute of Agriculture's Cumberland Forest. I'm also a University of Tennessee Forestry Wildlife Fisheries graduate student. I'm currently working on my PhD. There are over 80 native trees in the forests of Tennessee, each with unique leaf size, leaf shape, arrangement on the branch, branch patterns, and ultimately crown forms. These crown characteristics can dramatically impact the growing space around that tree. Now, oaks are our most abundant trees on the landscape. However, in spite of this, there's a problem in the regeneration and recruitment of oak from larger or small size classes into larger size classes. This is known as the Oak Regeneration Paradox, the fact that a dominant tree on the landscape is very difficult to regenerate. We are investigating this issue by looking at the response of oak development to varying neighbors, basically competitor species, based on their crown characteristics. Now, how are we doing that from a practical standpoint? In 2009, we took 6.5 acres on the Cumberland Forest headquarters, a gently rolling site, highly productive, and we divided that into roughly quarter-acre blocks. We planted in these quarter-acre blocks yellow poplar, sweet gum, or black cherry. Within those quarter-acre planted blocks, we also planted cherry bark oak, such that in this block, for example, we had yellow poplar. We would have a complete row of yellow poplar, another complete row of yellow poplar, and in between we would alternate between yellow poplar, cherry bark oak, and yellow poplar, such that the cherry bark oak was each oak was completely surrounded by that competitor tree. Not only did we do that with species, but we also varied our spacing. So for each yellow poplar, cherry bark oak mixture, and sweet gum mixture, and black cherry mixture, we also planted them at 6x6 spacing, an 8x8 spacing, and a 10x10 spacing. Why did we choose these species? Well, again, referencing the crown characteristics of species may play a very important part in the conditions that the surrounding trees are growing in. So we chose yellow poplar because of its extremely fast growth. It is one of the fastest growing hardwood trees that we know, and therefore highly competitive. It also has larger leaves and provides dense shade. So we know that on the competitive spectrum, this is on the far end. Recognizing that, we knew going in that there might be some alternate treatments or additional treatments we would have to do in order to maintain oak in this system. Sweet gum was chosen because of its excurrent form. While a fast grower, its crown has a conical shape. And if oak can maintain its top above the base of that cone, there's reason to believe that it will maintain itself long term, because sweet gum growth tends to slow down over time. Black cherry, however, although a fast grower, has a very light and airy crown. Therefore, there's a lot of filtered sunlight that is able to come through the crown and provide sunlight for other things growing around it. And that's basically why we chose those three competitor species. And we chose cherry bark oak because of its high value, and it is one of the faster growing red oaks. So here we are standing in a yellow poplar, cherry bark oak mixed plot that was planted at a 6x6 spacing. Now, I already mentioned that we knew going into this that choosing yellow poplar was going to create some issues. We just didn't realize how fast those issues were going to arise. So within 4 years, yellow poplar had overtopped the cherry bark oak. And of course, this was going to be a problem. So what we chose to do was to mechanically thin the immediately adjacent yellow poplar trees to our cherry bark oak. So what this looks like is that this poplar was cut, the poplar in front of us was cut, to the left and behind, leaving the diagonals. Now, we did not apply herbicide, and a thought there was that coppicing or sprouting from those cut stumps would provide upward pressure as they grew to the oak crown, providing shading and therefore pruning to these oak boles. Sure enough, within 3 years, the yellow poplar sprouts were almost 5 feet tall. And here you see them after about 7 years, and they in fact are almost the same height as the oak that they surround. Now, that wasn't the only treatment we had to do at this 6x6 spacing. After 7 growing seasons, the diagonal trees that were left after that thinning had overtopped the oak trees. And so we had to go in and apply imazapyr herbicide using a hack and squirt method. But as you can see, to the initial point and the reason we're doing this, these trees are recruiting quite well into larger size classes. We're staying in a sweet gum 6x6 plot now, and I mentioned that sweet gum is a fast growing tree. The crown form is conical, but if oak is able to maintain its top above the base of that sweet gum live crown, there's reason to believe that it will be able to maintain itself in this type of a system. So what we found, however, is that after 7 growing seasons, many of the oak had not gotten to the height that allowed them to be above that base of the sweet gum live crown. So we decided a treatment was in order. But instead of treating the whole plot, or a whole block, we ended up subdividing it. And half of the treatment, or half of the block, we treated, again, the immediately adjacent trees with a hack and squirt. There's a stump here, there's a dead sweet gum right there as a result. That opened up a crown space for this oak to grow. The other half we left intact without additional treatment to see if, in spite of that sweet gum crown closure, the oak would maintain itself in the system. With the black cherry cherry bark oak mixture, unlike the other 2 species at the 6x6 spacing, there was enough filtered light for the cherry bark oak to do quite well. So moving to the 8x8 species mixtures, to my right we have a 8x8 sweet gum and cherry bark oak mixture, and no other treatment was done. And you can see that the cherry bark oak is on average doing fairly well. It has maintained itself above that base of the sweet gum live crown, and should be able to maintain itself in this system. Now, moving to the left, we are in a yellow poplar and cherry bark oak 8x8 mixture. And in fact, because of the highly competitive nature of yellow poplar, it too closed the gaps above the oak at 7 years. So we had to come in and make a decision to do an additional treatment. Like the 6x6, we took immediately adjacent yellow poplar trees and cut them without herbicide, such that we would have coppicing, again, providing that pressure from below to hopefully, with pruning on these oaks, move the oak crown upward. Not enough time has elapsed for the results of that treatment to close around the oak, and so these oaks are getting direct sunlight from above. So here we are at a black cherry bark oak 10 by 10 mixture, and so we're on the other end of the density spectrum of what we planted here, and the oak are doing quite well. They've had plenty of sunlight, and you know, in amongst these cherry around me. But you can see there's a lot of yellow poplar sprouts here. Well, the reason there's yellow poplar sprouts here is because after the 10th growing season, which was last year, we had to mechanically come in and remove these yellow poplar. There was so much sunlight that yellow poplar naturally regenerated in this block and was threatening the integrity of this relationship or possible relationship between black cherry and oak. So we elected to come in and remove that for research purposes. If not, yellow poplar probably would have overtopped both the oak and the cherry. But on the other hand, you see behind me the example of the cherry bark oak that has received lots of sunlight coming through the very open crown here. And as a result, one additional problem we have is branches that come well down the bowl. So stem quality may be an issue from a timber standpoint. These are issues that we do not have with the other two mixtures, even at the wider spacings. So in summary, we see that on the one end, the denser the spacing with the highly competitive, fast-growing, large lead trees, species, there's an inhibitory effect on the growth and development of oak, such that recruitment from the smaller size classes into larger size classes may not occur. On the other end of the spectrum, too much light with a wide space and species such as black cherry allows almost too much sunlight, and you have a lot of naturally occurring yellow poplar and sweet gum that comes in that would also have an inhibitory effect. Now, what we're doing here is not necessarily encouraging people to plant these types of mixtures. This is fairly costly. What we're doing is attempting to investigate this recruitment issue based on the crown characteristics of competitor trees and their effect on the growth and development of oak. I want to thank you for listening to this. I thank you for tuning in, and I hope that this has been of benefit to you. And I also want to thank the Institute of Agriculture for facilitating all of this research. Thank you.